Hello and welcome to this video. In this video, we will take a look at the components of the Jupyter Notebook. The Jupyter Notebook application is a client-server application. A client-server application basically is a distributed application structure that partitions tasks or workloads between the providers of a resource or a service, which are usually called servers, and the service requesters, which are usually called clients. So the server, which is represented by this box here, is the resource provider. And then we have the client. In terms of Jupyter Notebook, that could be your web browser, because the Jupyter Notebook also has a web component, which is a web browser which will act as the client to the server. So the client will be requesting services from the server, which is the provider of the resource. In a client server application, it can also provide resources to other clients, and clients can include other computers. It could be remote, and you can access the server, which can be remote, over the internet using different types of client, like your mobile phone, your laptop, or your computer device. The main components of the Jupyter Notebook include the Notebook web application. We also have the kernel, and then we have the notebook documents. So let me give you a brief description of each of the components of the Jupyter Notebook. The first is the notebook web application. This is basically an interactive web application that you can use to write and run your code interactively. You can also use it to author notebook documents. The second Jupyter Notebook component is called the kernels. The kernels basically are separate processes started by the notebook web application, and it usually runs in the user's code, and it runs in a given language. The default language is Python, but it can run in other languages. And what it does, it returns the output from the notebook web application back to the notebook web application. And the kernel basically handles things like computations for interactive widgets, tab completion, introspection, and other bits and pieces. So the kernel basically interacts with the notebook web application. The third component is called the notebook document. The notebook document is basically a self-contained document that contains a representation of all the content that is visible inside the notebook web application. This includes the inputs you have and also the outputs, which are produced from the kernel. Okay. It also includes narrative text, equations, images. It can also include videos, rich media representation of objects, and each of the notebook documents has its own kernel. So there is a kernel for Python, there's a kernel for other programming languages as well. So that's it for this video. In this video, I just gave you a brief introduction to the various components of the Jupyter Notebook. Thank you for watching. Bye for now.